Hello and welcome to another powerful episode of the Black Male Impact. Today we have as guest Dr. Steve Perry. Most of you may have known who Dr. Perry is, and as today we're going to be talking about legacy builders. So before we get into the conversation itself, I just want to share just a little bit about Dr. Perry for those who may not know who Dr. Perry is. But my name is Richard A. Cross, Dr. Richard A. Cross. And as I said earlier, this is another episode of the Black Male Impact. Dr. Perry is the founder and head of Capital Preparatory Schools. And he have been in education for over 30 years. And one of the things that we often hear is that we need to see more Black men in education. So it is great to have
Can't
Dr.
hear you.
So you're not hearing?
The sound went out.
Okay, I'm hearing you.
Trans.
Um, are you hearing?
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
I cannot hear you though. Huh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I am hearing you. Are you
Hold on, I'm
hearing
gonna
me?
go out and come back in.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me- Yes.
Okay. For some reason my AirPods are not working. Sorry about that.
Okay. Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you perfectly now. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. Okay. And for those who are here with us, sorry for um, that's how technology is at times. Sometimes we cannot really determine what will happen when it comes to technology. But for those who are here with us, just my apology with the delay with the technology. But just as I was saying earlier with Dr. Perry, about Dr. Perry, he have served over 30 years in education. And when we hear, and what we have been hearing a lot is that we need more Black men in education. And that is really commendable when we see Black men in those spaces speaking on behalf of, um, the population itself of Black men and how important it is for us to be in that space, not just to educate the students, but for them to see us and realize the impact that we can have in that space. So, as I said, Dr. Perry, he's the founder and head of Capital Preparatory Schools. So, Dr. Perry, I don't mind, if you don't mind, if you want to share anything else with the listeners before we get into the conversation itself. And if not, we can go straight into the conversation. Although I didn't tell them that you have been a contributor to some of the major networks including MSNBC, CNN, and Al Jazeera. If
Al
I
Jazeera. Al
Al,
Jazeera, yeah.
Al Jazeera. But that's where I've seen you first, actually, on CNN, talking about how important it is for us to provide environment, especially for the most vulnerable students who sometimes get overlooked, by the education system. So before we get further into the conversation, if you don't mind, you want to share anything with the listeners before we get into the questions.
Well, Dr. Cross, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Um, I think the most important part about me is the work that I do. So talking about the work is vital.
Correct.
So I'm excited about the conversation.
Man, it's just a pleasure, to have you here. and the impact that you have been having over the years. So I want to start with this question. And today's conversation is about legacy building and what we can do, especially as Black men. So my first question to you is, what does the term legacy mean to you, and how do you define it in your own life?
What legacy means is the impact that your work has beyond your ability to continue to do it.
Okay.
It is the memories that you create, it is the organizations that you build, it's the opportunities that you present. In our industry, it's the lives that you change. The legacy of Capital Prep are the thousands of children who we've had the opportunity to play a role in their lives. As I see them on the internet and Facebook and Instagram, I see them as fathers and mothers and doctors and lawyers and educators and flight attendants and entrepreneurs. The legacy is the impact that your work has beyond you, beyond you.
I totally agree with you, and I think if we approach what we do from that perspective, we'll see a lot more change because it has to be more than who we are. It's more so about the impact that we are here to make. Once we make the impact, we'll change lives. So that leads me to my next question. What pivotal moments in your life shaped your mindset about building a legacy?
I had the opportunity to grow up poor and with a fairly disengaged father. And between those two experiences, I recognized that nobody's going to give me anything. And even if I feel that they're supposed to, doesn't mean that they're going to. So it shaped me not as a moment, but as an experience. Seeing people who I felt were better off than I was because their families had more money than mine, made me want better for myself. Seeing that there were lots of people like me who didn't have much made me want better for my community. On the same token, having a fairly disengaged father who came to two games that I played, considering I played football since I was 9,
Oh, wow.
um, baseball since I was 9, track. So I was, in sports year round. And he came to two games, I believe, two total. Um, I felt that I'll show him.
What you gonna do different?
I'll show him.
Well, go ahead.
So now those two things put together were not a moment, but they were constant drumbeat. And then feeling like there were kids who had more than I did, who felt like they were better than I was. I felt like I'll show them too. So, but the moments keep coming. They haven't stopped. I got plenty more.
Well, being that you said based on your experience, so did you had the desire early to get into education, or that something came later?
No, not at all. I spent more time in the principal's office than the principal when I was in elementary school. I mean, she put my name on the wall. Um, I stayed back in the third grade. I was not a good student. At least I didn't think I was. And I didn't think I was smart either. Um, it wasn't until college that I got good at school.
Okay.
Um, no, no, no. I thought I was going to be a politician. I thought I was going to be the mayor of my hometown.
Oh yeah.
I, I didn't think. I, I had never met anyone who started a school before I started a school. I didn't even know you could do it.
Oh wow.
I don't even know why I thought I could do it, to be honest with you. Like, I really don't know. There was no one who I met in 2002 who had ever started a school. Not a single human being.
So
So there was
this,
nobody for me to call, nobody for me to watch on television. Nobody. Nobody who knew anything about this stuff. I don't even know how I did it. I don't. I really don't.
but it was more so for the need that you have seen, though.
Yeah, I just couldn't get past. I just felt like people. I carried my own experiences forward. I felt like people believed that black children, in particular, black and Latin children in general, were just not as smart as white kids. I really did feel that way, and I felt like that wasn't true. Like, I felt like my I was running a nonprofit organization that I started that worked an upward bound program, and I felt like my kids were smart too. I just felt like they talked differently. Like, you have an accent,
Correct.
just an accent. Like, it's not didn't mean anything. Just says where you're from,
Correct.
you know. And I didn't. And so I grew up with an accent. I grew up conjugating verbs differently. I grew up calling things something different than other people. It just was what it was. My mother had me on her 16th birthday, in between a sophomore and junior year of high school. Um, my father never completed. He never even made it to high school.
Oh wow.
My grandfather never made it past the third grade, and my grandmother, they say she made it to the fifth grade, but she never made it to middle school.
Oh wow.
So we taught differently. But my grandfather was very, very smart. And I don't say that as somebody who was just looking up to his granddad, like, like with some sort of idolatry. I mean, he was really smart, just pure intellectual
Brilliant.
capacity. He was a smart person. He was mechanically inclined in a really big way, um, but he just talked differently. And so I couldn't be convinced that my kids who talked differently were less intelligent. And
Right.
so I thought, I'll show them.
That's right. And sometimes, young people, kids need someone who understands that, so they can break out of the norm or the social construction that they may have take on, maybe not consciously at times, because, sometimes that's what we do. Unconsciously, we take on the belief that we see around us and think that's who we should be based on our environment and based on what we see in the people around us. But that kind of take us a little bit off the questions and stuff like that. But I think that's a great point that you have made. But you're about to say something.
No, the research is really clear. I just had a conversation with the Yale researcher. Her name is Dr. Chin Reyes. And Dr. Chin Reyes has done about 11, 12 years worth of research on unconscious bias. And one of the studies that she did studied pre kindergarten teachers, and they attached this complex eye software that would follow their eyes. And they had four children:
Yeah.
a black boy, a white girl, and a black girl. And they asked them to monitor which children were misbehaving. 52% of them looked at the black boy. The truth is, none of them were misbehaving.
Wow.
They were actors. They were just pre-kindergarten 4-year-olds who were just sitting at a table. They all did the same thing.
Wow.
Black boys are twice as likely to be expelled from kindergarten than white boys, and 5 times as likely to be expelled than Asian children.
Wow.
The entire country, black and white, thinks that black children are less intelligent and less capable of doing well in school than white and Asian kids. And that includes black people.
Oh yeah, because we have been conditioned to believe the lies that have been shared, or we have been socialized to think. And the same thing that we think, others think, or the same thing others think about us, the same thing that we think, because we are exposed to the same thing. But as you bring that up about, seeing the black child, the black boy, as someone who misbehaved or someone who is less intelligent. I remember when I came across Amos Wilson book, and when he talks about, the development of, black kids and how fast they develop, that, counter what we sometimes have been conditioned to think. So it's important, like someone like you are, or people who become aware of that false narrative, to say, no, that's not what is. That's only what we have been conditioned to believe. But, to continue on the legacy building, and which is really great, for someone like you to create an environment where kids who sometimes may have been overlooked or think they will not achieve, to be in a space where they will be affirmed. I think that is important. And that's actually, a great legacy. But I'm going to get back to the question itself that I have here that I want to ask. And the next question to you is, how can Black men shift from a survival mindset to a legacy building mindset?
Well, I to some degree have to understand what you mean by survival, but if I were to take it as at its face value, survival is what I do for myself. Legacy building is what I do for my people. Survival justifies me deciding to run for office, win the office, and then make sure I stay in office for myself. That's survival. Survival is being the black guy who's hired by the university or the Fortune 500 company to handle issues like diversity, equity, and inclusion, but hire almost no one after me. Uh, Survival is um, being a teacher at any level and justifying why I need to go home early because I need for my mental health. Excuse me. However, legacy building is running for office and then putting in place legislation that will improve the community, even if it means I will not win the election. Legacy building means that if you happen to be a person who is given a job like a diversity, equity, inclusion, like a vice president, or like somebody who works at a major company or organization, creating more opportunities for more people who look like you, who come from your community, to experience at least what you've experienced, if not more.
Correct.
Legacy building means instead of saying I got to go home because I need to take care of my mental health and these kids, it's and coming up with justifications such as that, it means you recognize that the children need more of your time and you create more opportunities for do that. You foster a relationship with them. You build a schedule with your family so that your family understands that you have to be at school when maybe you could be home. That's legacy building. Legacy building means you're creating something beyond your own little life.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. Especially, I like the point that you have made. Is when we get the opportunity to create opportunity, we should create those opportunities, and that's how we, build legacy. But as you mentioned, which I've seen it, a lot of people have seen it, where we sometimes get in spaces and forget why we get into those spaces.
I say all the time. I say more often than not. I say one of the best ways to make sure that you don't have to hire more black people is to hire a black person, put them in a position of authority, and tell them that they need to maintain. And that's what happens. Too often, too many of us can think of people who work at a bank in community lending, but they don't lend to anybody. I mean, really, we can think like we can all name, if you're a black professional, you know black people who are the vice president at somebody's college, and then you look, you're like, damn, dog, you haven't hired any black people. Like, when was the last black people? Whereas another ethnicity, another race or an ethnicity, you hire one of them, and you got a whole bunch of them coming right behind them. The whole department turns that way.
Correct.
Not with us.
Yeah, and sometimes it really bothers me, especially when we're talking about growth, when we're talking about change, when we're talking about progress, and you do see individuals there, and what some often say, they become the gatekeepers. And if we're going to build legacy, we cannot be gatekeepers. Our responsibility, I believe, is to create opportunity for those who can help to move the needle forward. But again, I think we all are exposed where we are conditioned to hate ourselves and maybe hate each other and maybe hold each other back. Where we think, if I give you an opportunity, you're going to take from me, not knowing that if I give you an opportunity, it's going to help advance what success may look like.
It's the stupidest thing in the world. I can name politicians who I know right now in Connecticut. I can name uh, educators who I know all over the country. I can name. I'm not saying these people are friends. I could name people who work in banks, and I mean this. I know people who work at local banks. Their job is to give away money. That's what banks do. Banks give away money. That's how they make money. They give you money so they can charge you money to borrow their money. That's their whole job.
Correct.
I know black people who've worked at some of the biggest companies in the entire world in VP of blase blah. And if you look at after they were hired, how many black people were hired? Damn near none. I know black people who work on college campuses, PWIs. How many people have they hired who were black after them? How many? And why stupid, and it's just stupid that they don't, is because if your goofy behind is the only one in the room when stuff goes left, who's got your back, dummy? Now what did you do? All you did was put yourself in the room by yourself. I think of it as like when I was growing up, if you go to a party, you don't go by yourself. Why would you go by yourself? Stuff goes left, now what's gonna happen? You up in there by yourself? If you go to the party, y'all got $5
Correct.
and it costs $5 to get in. That means you send one person in and he gets the other four people in. He gets the stamp, comes out, rubs it on your hand. He goes around, opens another door. He gets the ticket. He gets the armband. He does whatever he's got to do to get the rest of y'all in. So nobody else gets in. Now he's in there. Something jumps off. He gets dragged and beaten. He's there by himself. He did that to himself. How many times have you seen black people who work at colleges, universities, companies, nonprofit organizations? How many black executive directors of not-for-profit organizations are there? And then you look at their staff ain't all black. No, it is not. But you hire so many times, how many times a white woman is hired? Her entire staff is white and
I think
female.
Yeah, I think we sometimes think we need permission. I don't. I think it's even deeper than you know. Think we need permission. Some people, it sometimes it's really hard to understand because we see, as you mentioned, and then nothing changed because if you don't see us, and when it comes to the students too, especially if you're serving students, if the students are not seeing themselves, then it makes it even harder for them to have the aspiration to go after the goal that you're trying for them to achieve.
I'm gonna
Because
say it a little differently. I'm gonna say it a little differently. While I don't believe you have to see what you want to be in order to be what you ultimately become,
yeah,
I will say this. For a lot of young people, one reason they don't mess with the black middle class is because they don't believe the black middle class messes with them.
mm,
A lot of poor kids who are black feel like they don't care about us. And so why should I care about them? I
mm.
don't talk like them. They don't feel, right or wrong, they don't feel like they belong. And that's
And,
all
and
right. That's all
and that's a valid point because if we don't feel and it still happen within the organization, they don't feel like they belong, and then they may act out in different ways. But I just want to acknowledge Miss Walker here. She made a point after you have shared something. Historically speaking, black and brown boys have been a symbol of a power that needs to be monitored and tamed, thus inciting an innate fear. No matter the age, people often maneuver around black men as if they have to coward or act tougher to survive in their present. The result is the nation is a nation that villainize them. This streamlined prejudice is why it is so important that black men create resort to safe spaces that empower them. That goes back to what you're saying, or to what you're actually doing with the schools that you create. That we have spaces that they feel as if they can thrive. But I want to go on to the next question because I have quite a few questions that I want to ask you before we get to the top of the hour. My next question to you is: what barriers do you think black men face within when it comes to creating generational wealth and stability?
Greatest, the greatest barrier that we face is not our enemy, but our ally, who is
Yeah,
too weak to fight on our behalf. It's the ally who doesn't tell you about the job. It's the ally who doesn't show you how to start a trust so that your house can be protected, but they have a trust. It's the ally who doesn't show you where their kid goes to get tutoring, but their kid does go to get tutoring. It's the ally who's elected. It's the ally who's employed. It's the ally, the ally, the ally. The ally who doesn't share their resources. They are the ones who sow the seeds of doubt. When Dr. King wrote the letter from the Birmingham prison,
yeah,
he wasn't writing to racists. He was writing to allies, pastors. When we look at who stands in our way, when he wrote the book Where Do We Go From Here, Community Chaos, or when he wrote Why Freedom Can't Wait, he was writing that book to our community. I know it's easy to think of him talking to the racists, and he was talking to people, black and white, who he was like, yo, y'all keep telling me to be patient. Patient for what? Who's going to live forever? You want me to be patient? What does that even mean these days? Like, what? Patient? No, I don't want to be patient. If all we had was a community of people who wish to share their wealth, the wealth of resources or information that they have, we'd be all set. I'll take it one step further. Think of how many times you've been to a gala. It's a black gala, right? Um, oh, thank you, Miss Thornton.
Yes.
Um, and think of how many scholarship events you've been to, or those kinds of things. And all us are there fancy. We're paying anywhere from $200 to $500 a ticket. Most of that money goes to the white uh, hall that we're renting, right? I mean, most, like 2/3 of it goes. Maybe some of it goes to a speaker like me. And then we give out $500 scholarships to the kids. Whereas we took the same 500 people, took the same $250, put that all into something, one thing that we wished to do, right?
Hmm.
An investment, small properties, right? Same room. Gather somewhere that's not as fancy. Maybe it's a potluck. And you bring the kids in and they watch us all build something together. That's more important than a scholarship.
And that will start the generational wealth. But again, we have been conditioned not to be of support to each other. And there is a big distrust between us. And if we're thinking about building wealth, generational wealth, we somewhat have to work together to get there. It's not going to be one of us, it's going to be a collective. But before I get even to the next question, I just want to highlight what David shared. I think he have read your book, Man Up. Nobody is coming to save us, which is important. It's a mindset that we have to have, because if we're going to change the narrative, if we're going to create wealth, we have to use the resources that we have to help to change not just our current social status, but create it in a way, as you mentioned, start something that they see us building that they can build on, going forward. And it is so important if we're going to, um,
Let me add this last piece to that, and I
yeah,
know we're nearing uh, next phases, but one of the challenges of creating generational wealth is something that I'm learning as a father of two, one 20 something and one soon to be 20-year old um, sons. One of the hardest parts about creating generational wealth is building the work ethic in the children that we raise, helping them to understand that for those of us who have had to thug it out and make it to this place, to be able to pass on the same work ethic, the same dog that made it possible for us to get here, to put the dog in them. And I know too many people who have raised kids who are going to spend up every damn dime that their parents have raised before they die, meaning either before the parents die or before those kids die. So that it can't be generational because it doesn't make it past them. They're gonna blow it. They're gonna sell the house, do something dumb with it. They just don't have it. They don't have
the foundation to bring it forward.
the respect for the work that their parents put in. They don't take $100,000 investment and turn it into $1 million. They take $100,000 and they go buy something. That's the difference. And that really is the scariest part about all of this is for those people who do get a little bit of bread, do build something. I know too few people. It's actually heartbreaking to me. I know too few people who've started something whose kids plan on taking it over. And I mean, I know too few. Most of the men and women who I know who have started everything from schools to cleaning businesses to churches,
Yeah, the
Their
kids.
kids ain't taking it.
And and but you know, you said something really important is to build the work ethic in the kids. You know, once you have overcome the challenge and create wealth, you know, financial security for yourself, because you know the generational wealth comes once they learn how to build on what they come and see. And I think that is really important is to build that work ethic in the young people and have them respect, you know, what you have done. And I think once that can happen, but you know, some people once they get there, they start to give the kids what they didn't have, not
Exactly what
they
happens.
not the knowledge, which that should be what passed on, but they give them the things that they didn't get when they were growing up. But you know, I want to go on to the next question, because you know it could continue on that topic for a while. But how has mentorship played a role in your journey, and why it is important for building a strong legacy?
Yeah, I've not had very many mentors along the way. Um, for me, it wasn't mentorship, it was partnerships and collaborations. There were people who believed in me, um, but they were in no position to. I mean, they just signed on to the crazy ideas that I had and busted their behinds to make them true. So it wasn't I wasn't their mentor. They weren't mine. We just decided that, you know what? Why not us? Let's go. Let's go. Let's give it all we have. So I was very fortunate that I was able to connect with people who were just flat out about their life. Um, and they gave me pretty much every opportunity that I could have ever dreamed. And I hope they feel I've done the same for them.
I think you know that's important because you know you can get a mentor to show you the way, but having individuals there with you on the journey, to help you maneuver the challenges, to speak life into the vision, and even to believe in the vision, is important. You know, but we all know that mentorship is important and how, especially to navigate the journey going forward. Because if you learn something, if you have overcome a challenge, and I'm now coming, you know, behind it, because even though you didn't have mentors, I can guarantee you what you have learned on your journey will be valuable to someone that's coming behind you, who may want to do the same thing, being that when you started the school didn't know you could do it, didn't have no example of it. Now young people will see you and say, you know what, Dr. Perry did it, I believe I can do it, so I can now ask him.
That's a trippy thing for me. At one of the most humbling parts of my life is coming across people who've seen the work that we do and who have said that for whatever reasons that the work that we've done and do, because I still do this work,
Correct.
um, that this has somehow had an impact on their life decisions. It's a heady um, thing to consider because it's not why we did it. Uh, I really just believe that kids are kids and kids are smart in their own ways, and let's create as many opportunities as possible for them to show how beautiful and smart they are. I never set out to be on television ever. It just wasn't my thing. Well, I wanted to be on Arsenio Hall when I was in college because it was like the coolest great thing to be. But I don't sing, I don't rap, I don't act, I don't dance. So there's no reason why I would have gotten up there. And I wasn't anybody important enough to be considered for a show. So you know, uh, that it never was a goal.
But if I should say, you know, being that it wasn't a goal, and it may not have been something that you have pursued, right? To be on the TV, or was it some, as you say, it wasn't something that you pursued? Did they see the work that you're doing and then reach out to you because of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And yes, is the short answer to that. And one of the reasons why I am pleased with the space that I have the opportunity to occupy is because I'm not pretending to be something that I am not. I do not have to turn it on for you or turn it off for you. I'm. This is what I really do. This is what I really wore to work today. Um, I did just get in the house from our school in Harlem. I really was working with faculty today. I really was talking to children whose shirts were untucked and talking to them about presenting themselves appropriately. I really was looking at data today. I mean, it's what I really do. I really did sit through a presentation from a professor because I think that we could get better at our job. So I got my whole leadership team together and we listened and asked questions and read articles. So that people, what I am comfortable in is that you're not going to bump into a different version of me. This is me. This is what I do. And tomorrow morning, God willing, I will be, uh, actually, I'll be at our school back in Harlem tomorrow. I'll drive 2 hours in,
Wow.
um, and I'll be there bright and early. And I'll drive two, well, sometimes when I get home, three, sometimes 4 hours to get home. And I'll be working all the way home. And I really, so if someone were to look at the work that I do or think that I do this work, I really do it. There's some people who don't. There's some people who you see, um, they don't do this work. A whole bunch of consultants out there, they don't do it. I mean, maybe they used to do it, and I don't even know they were good at it. I mean, they did it.
You know,
Education is weird because we often judge people's performance by how long they did it. Should be when the research is clear that almost nobody loses their job in public education. So almost anybody who gets in is going to stay in it. But when a person says, "I used to be a principal," blah 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 blah, like, oh, and they become a consultant, and people hire them to come and talk. But I was a principal too 10 years ago, and despite the fact that I still work in education, being a principal is very different today than it was back then. It's very different, like very different. I didn't have to worry about I didn't have to worry about teachers quitting on a Wednesday. Like we never had that. I mean, if a teacher quit, it was like the worst thing on earth, and they knew that they would never work again in teaching, and that was that. Um, so, were people to find some level of inspiration in the work that they think I do? I'm comfortable with that because I really do it.
correct.
Still, I'm not. I'm not doing this for clicks and likes. I'm doing this because I love my kids. I really do. I can't believe that God gives me this opportunity. I really cannot. I am. It is beyond my comprehension. I don't know why. I've often asked, and I really have. I've said, "Why me?" You know, like there's got to be people who are, people who think, and there are people who would say that they're better at this than I am. Like, you might be. You might
Well,
be.
even if a person is better, dedication is important, and the passion for it is important. But you said something that is really, really important, and that is being authentic in the space. Because a lot of people, put on a show in those spaces and may not even making the connection that they need to make, especially to students that they're serving. And you see that a lot. I've been in educational spaces where they may have the title, but they're not making the connection with the students, because to make the connection, you have to be your authentic self. I think that is so important. As you stated, who you show up as here, that's the same person you're going to show up as out there. And I think that is really, really important, especially when we're talking about building legacy, changing the narrative, making an impact, because we can be in the space, but if we're not being ourselves, maybe we are, well, we're lying to ourselves, and then we're lying to the people that we are serving, which is really important. And that in itself is mentorship, because seeing you doing the work, even when you're not telling me to do the work, you're mentoring me so I can be, the best, because I'm going to show up as myself because I see you, sorry, showing up as yourself, which I believe is important. But I want to ask this next question. What advice would you give to young Black men about preparing for long term success?
Um, Success is a pointed path. It's straight up or straight down. And if you think you're on top, it's because you feel this pointiness underfoot. Success is getting up one more time than you've been knocked down.
And
Willing to be humiliated in order to get what you dream of. Success means putting up with things that you say you never would. Never. And then knowing when to draw the line and say that I've done enough. You're not going to talk to me that way. Success, it's a journey, not a destination. It's recognizing that that professor who was mad disrespectful to you is teaching you something that you maybe didn't want to learn but needed to know. Success is walking to work when you're young and older, um, so that when you do have a car, you really appreciate that car. Success is having to work in a grocery store and go in the freezer, or push carts, or work as a cashier. Success, preparing for long term success means starting when you're young and being prepared to really, 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 really humble yourself and learn to be the hardest working bee in the hive. I don't, I don't know that I consider myself successful in an objective sense. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means to be successful. I believe I'm fortunate.
well,
Um,
some people will look at,
I
what you
know
do.
I have tremendous opportunities, and some of them are, you know, it's easy to think of some of the visibility that I've had the opportunity to experience as success. As it goes, that's not what I think of as success. Or like some of the money that I've had the opportunity to make, I make a good living. Can provide for my family, but I don't know that I think of that as success. What I think of as success, because there are people who make money, like it's just because what they do, people get paid a lot to do. I don't know if they're the best at it.
Right.
Where success comes in for me, and where I would give people advice on being successful, where success comes in for me is reflecting on the opportunity that today I, a black man, was born on his mother's 16th birthday
Wow.
in third generation of public housing, woke up living across the street from the beach and went to work at an organization that we started from scratch. I have two sons who I love, wife who I love, people who I love. And again, God willing, I will get to do that tomorrow morning. And here's what success is. The most honest part of that is I didn't want to get out of bed this morning.
But you did.
I had so many things on my head. so many trials that I was going through about work, and a state commissioner who was doing us dirty here in Connecticut, politicians who were doing us dirty, uh, teachers who called out sick, whether they were sick or not, I don't know. I didn't want to get up, but I'm so grateful that I get to do it, that I can say to the young person going into that freezer at the grocery store and having to go in there and get the stuff out, having to push the carts, having to work at the counter, having to have a professor talk to you crazy and disrespectfully, having to put up with stuff. All of those experiences build the muscles that are necessary for you to drag your ass out of bed on a Monday at 5 a.m. when you went to bed at midnight and you woke up 3 times in the middle of the night and you just want to look at the beach. You don't want to drive 2 hours to work, and you don't want to deal with those things. Building those muscles as a young person is vital, because at 55 years old, when the bed feels just right and you finally hit that REM, finally, that muscle of a 19-year-old who had to walk to work,
Yeah.
and it took him an hour to walk to work, doesn't mind driving in a car that he likes 2 hours to work.
And
That's how you prepare for success.
man, and
Busting your ass when you're a kid, when you're coming up, when you're grinding, dealing with people you don't want to deal with when you're coming up and you're grinding. That is how it happens. I don't get to live here if I don't work.
well, that's right. That's right. And if I should sum
I
up,
don't get people asking me questions if we're not very good.
that's right. That's right. And just
So I had to be up
yeah, yeah,
in the middle of the night because there were problems I was trying to solve that I couldn't get solved during the day on Sunday.
man, that's right. And just to
You
sum up,
have to build those muscles. It's those experiences that you just hate. It's that professor who you hate. It's that boss who you hate, that you got to figure out what to make of.
and go
There's
ahead.
a woman who I worked for when we were starting Capital Prep. She was so disrespectful. She's black. So disrespectful. So disrespectful. So disrespectful. So disrespectful.
But as you said,
But
the younger years prepared you. But just to sum up
she was
when you're
very
working on that,
necessary.
yeah, that
If I
journey.
knew her now, I would thank her. Not thank her because she did anything right. Like, she didn't mean to give me motivation, but she did.
Oh yeah, those
Because you know
challenges
what, brother?
sometimes do.
I would look at her and I would think, how the hell am I working for her? Like, look at my life. How do I work for her? She's not even smart. She's not a smart person. But she determines my fate every day. She can decide to fire me.
Wow.
She was so important because I busted my ass to make sure I never worked for a person like that again. I haven't worked since 1997. No, 1999. I have not worked 98. Since 1998, I have not worked for any organization that I didn't start since 1998.
Wow.
Never again. And
You
I
know,
really
but
appreciate her for that,
oh yeah, those
because I'm
experiences
never
sometimes
not going
push us.
back. So when that bed is warm and it's dark outside, I remember walking to work Took me 90 minutes. That's true. I'm not lying to you. I
Wow.
worked in Philadelphia. I can show you. You can, what is it? You can GPS. If I gave you the address of 46th and Cedar and 13th and Race, you will see that it takes almost 90 minutes to make that walk. I took that walk 3 times a week during my internship because I didn't have $3.15 to take SEPTA, which was the train.
But that
I
prepare
didn't
you.
have it.
That prepare you. But
So do I mind driving 2 hours in a car now? Mm-mm.
yeah,
Because
that's
I
gonna be
walked 90 minutes in the rain, sleet, snow
that
to an
prepares you,
internship where I didn't get paid just so I could be here looking at that, talking to you.
man, and that's important. The positive attitude despite the challenges and being the hardest worker is important, as you share. Just to sum it up, and I have two more questions that I want to ask before we get to the end of this conversation. But I think that is important. Those trials and sometimes those people, as you
I don't know
mentioned.
if you're frozen.
No, it's not frozen. Are you seeing me? I think. Are you see? I think I'm moving, but I'm seeing you though. But the next question that I want to ask you is, what is one lesson you learned too late that you wish your younger black men could learn early? What lesson have you learned late that you wish the young black males today could learn
I'm
now?
not sure if you're frozen, but I don't see you moving
No,
and I don't
it's
hear
not
anything.
frozen. I'm hearing you. Are you hearing me? I'm hearing you. Are you hearing me? Well, again, I guess we're having a little bit of technical
Well,
difficulty again.
hopefully you got all that,
Yes,
brother.
I
It
have.
was a real pleasure to talk to you, Dr. Cross.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a pleasure. Are you
Thank you
hearing
for
me?
the work you do. I wish you and those people who joined us this evening all the best. Um, Take it easy. Oh,
Hello?
there you go. Yeah, you
Yeah.
were frozen.
Oh yeah, I was seeing you. I was hearing everything that you were saying. Um, but I just want to ask one more question because we're getting close to the end. What what lesson did you learn late that you wish the young black males learn right now?
I wish, in a positive way, I wish color meant more than it does because then I would be able to trust everybody who's from my community. And so, what I would say is one of the lessons that I've learned most is judge people by their deeds. Judge people by their deeds. And ride with who wants to ride with you. You owe that to yourself.
I think that is really important um, because it's one thing to say you're going to do, but it's the next thing to do it, and I think that is really important. Um, and if you don't mind, I know you don't like to talk about, and we're getting to the end of the conversation today. I know you don't like to talk about. I know you have a tour coming up. If you don't mind, share that with the listeners. And if there's ways for them to support you, please share because I believe
Yep.
what you're doing is important.
Yep. So I'll do that real quick. Thank you so much again, Dr. Cross. Appreciate you and your listeners. I will say this: we are on a tour now, and those people who are interested in having me come to your organization, school, what have you, church, mosque, synagogue. We are on tour. This summer we will be hitting the road. This spring we'll be hitting the road. So you can go to Instagram at Dr. Steve Perry. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on every platform that you know. And it's Dr. Steve Perry, and that's me. So I appreciate you, good brother. You enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too, man. It's a pleasure having you here.
All right, peace.
All right, thank you. And yes, for the listeners, it was a pleasure to have Dr. Perry here with us today. And we had a little bit of technical difficulty. But I also want to thank you all for being here, for joining us today on this episode of the Black Man Impact. And, we will continue to bring guests that we believe will make and share with us, what we can apply to our life as we move forward. I just want to say thank you. And as always, the goal is to make a difference. And please continue to make a difference yourself, the lives of those who are closest to you, especially. But always remember that someone is watching. Thanks for being here with us today.